Welcome everyone, we are live. Woohoo! Welcome to Torah L'Chaim with your host Rabbi Anibal wearing the, let's see who knows what this is. We are streaming live from the Asper Jewish Community Center, and even though today is not officially the day of acknowledging truth and reconciliation, here in the building it is. There are lots of activities for the kids, and so my wife Ashira is joining me here today, and myself decided to join them wearing the orange. Every child matters. If you're watching from outside Canada, you can Google it and learn a little bit what it means in building bridges of reconciliation with our brothers and sisters, the first peoples. It's very interesting. Officially, it's going to be on the 30th, which is Saturday. And if you tune into our services at the Shari Zedek, you will notice that we are going to, all the clergy team is going to be wearing orange on Saturday morning. So if you're coming to services, you may want to join us and wear orange as well to honor the day of truth and reconciliation. Okay, it's also Sukkot, so it's going to be very interesting. We're going to have two shorter sermons, one that is going to be presented by me about Sukkot, and another one presented by our executive director, Rina Sekter Albaz, that she's going to teach a little bit about the Day of Truth and Reconciliation. So it's going to be a very meaningful service. If you can make it in person, that would be great. Otherwise, you know us, we stream everything. We stream absolutely everything. So welcome everyone. Welcome Ashira, Shelly, Valerie, Jerome, here in person, plus another looks like 1,000 kids around us. So if you hear noises, it's because we're in a busy place. And who is in the, let's see who is in the virtual classroom. We have Priscilla Kerr, we have Rocky Pollock, we have Brendan David Grossman, and let's see who else. If you are there, if you want to say hello, use the chat. We'd like to know that you're joining us from home this afternoon. In the local time in Winnipeg is 12:07 p.m. and we are ready to begin. And I wanted to dedicate today's class to study about Sukkot. We have to prepare. I don't know if you can see here. It's kind of tricky, but right there, the sukkah is already up here at the Asper Jewish Community Center. I think the kids at school already started to have activities there. They're going to spend more time tomorrow. Unfortunately, we cannot build one at Temple Shalom this year. They have no green space.
No, they don't.
To do it.
You can't do it on the roof.
And I know they actually build it inside the sanctuary. It's a Reformed congregation. For them, it's acceptable. For us, that we follow the conservative/orthodox interpretation of the sukkah, we don't build it indoors. So we either use the one here at the Asper campus, or we have one at home.
Yeah.
If we ever finish it, right?
If you ever finish
If I ever finish it.
you and run in.
Tradition for us is to build the structure almost immediately after Yom Kippur.
Of course.
And then whenever we will put the walls, which is a pre-made sukkah, by the way. If you never had a sukkah, if you want to have one, you can buy the one. It's a kit. I remember the first year it took me like an hour and a half to build it.
That's because you're a Jewish boy and you don't know how to do things with an Allen wrench.
This year was 15 minutes to build the structure. It's already, and the problem is sometimes I overthink. I say, no, I'm probably wrong. It's probably, no.
It's not complicated.
It's very easy to,
It's not complicated.
it's very easy. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to study about Sukkot. I have next to me the species here. It is the etrog. And I have, look at this, the lulav set right here. And I also have this, which is to carry the lulav and the etrog. This was a present actually from Tel Masuris a few years ago. It's very convenient thing. It has a has a little handle.
And then nothing gets damaged on your way to and from shul.
Yeah, except that I think the zipper went. So, but I just wanted to show you that
That's a terrific idea.
there is such thing as a lulav carrier. Same thing that you will have one for the shofar, for example,
Yes.
and you can have one for the tefillin or the talit.
Yep.
There is also, in Judaism, we have a concept that is called hidur mitzvah. Hidur mitzvah. Okay? And it means beautify the commandments. And we do it for virtually every mitzvah. We beautify the commandments. For example, the Torah says that you have to write the word of God in the frame, in the doors, the frame of your doors. What do we put?
Mezuzah.
Well, the mezuzah is actually the frame, but we put this box with a scroll inside, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, my point is, according to the Torah, all you have to do, get the scroll and nail it to the wall, to the door. You're fulfilling the mitzvah. But nobody does that. We buy a beautiful case. Why? Hidur mitzvah, to beautify the mitzvah. The Torah said you have to put tzitzit in your four corners. Okay. But you see, if you ever see the talit, it has colors, you have the atara, some beautiful thing here at the neck. Why? Hidur mitzvah. When you build the sukkah, many people will decorate it inside. Why? Hidur mitzvah. Because we beautify the mitzvah. And we get the lulav, the etrog. Some people will even have a metallic box for this.
Yes, I've seen them. They're very beautiful, some of them.
And
very expensive.
a beautiful bag to carry it. Why? Hidur mitzvah. And we do it virtually every mitzvah. If you ever come to the Pesach Seder, why the people have a special plate with all the elements. You can just put the elements on the table and you're fine. Hidur mitzvah. Always remember that word, hidur mitzvah. Okay? So let's study a little bit about Sukkot right now. I'm going to bring my material here. You should see it in front of you. And let's start with the basics. Basics for Sukkot. Okay? Now is when it starts. When it starts. On the 15th day of the Hebrew month of Tishrei. Which number of month is Tishrei? Which number of month is Tishrei? The first, according to the rabbis. Seventh, according to the Torah. Because remember, we always have two calendars, rabbinical and biblical. Biblical calendar starts with the first of Nisan,
Yes.
but it doesn't have the months don't have names. So what we call Nisan, which is the month of Pesach, the Torah calls it the first month.
Yeah.
And what we call Tishrei, the Torah calls it the seventh month. Very simple. So, begins on the 15th of Tishrei or the 15th of the 7th biblical month. Okay? Okay, how long? 7 days in Israel, 8 days in the diaspora. Okay? And then starts on a full moon. How do I know that?
Because it says so.
How do we know that it starts on a full moon in the sky? Look at the date. Which date starts? The 15th. It's the 15th of a lunar month, which is just the middle of the cycle.
Yeah.
So all the Jewish month starts with the new moon, which is when you can't see it. It's just
It's a sliver.
it's a halo around. But then it's not a coincidence that Sukkot, Festival of the Booth, with lots of celebration, is in the middle of the month when you have the most natural light at night.
Yes.
During the new moon, there is not much you can do outside unless you have artificial light, which back in the biblical days they didn't have. So the middle of the month, especially spring, summer, early fall, were to celebrate because you could do it,
Yep.
right? So it's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that we can do this. But let's keep moving. Start on the full moon. Next, Sukkot has 3 other names.
A festival of booths.
But Sukkot is the festival of booths.
Booths.
That is the most common one. But actually,
Yes, no, maybe.
I'm going to challenge
Okay.
the translation of Sukkot as booth. And you're going to see in a few minutes why I challenge that. Sometimes we rely on translations that they
Greek
will
translation.
bias the way we think about holidays. And the fact that we immediately translate Sukkot at booth is good and bad. Okay?
What's the bad?
Sukkot means how do you call it? The word. It's not necessarily a booth. It's like a refuge,
Like a
shelter,
hiding place?
shelter. So Sukkot is a shelter. But for example, if I'm sheltering you, could also be involved the word sukkah. Okay. But what do we say even in Friday night? So, Ufros aleinu, Sukkot shlomecha. So we are asking God to shelter us with a sukkah of peace. Is that a booth?
No.
No. Okay? So if we choose to translate Sukkot as festival of booth, could be tricky. Because your idea made up your mind of what sukkah means.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean a booth. Okay?
Gotcha.
And we are going to see why the rabbis decided to understand it as booths. Not yet. We are still on the basics. Let's continue. So,
Harvest?
in the Torah, it's called Chag HaAsif, Festival of Gathering. In the Talmud, it's called Chag. Chag, just Chag. What is Chag?
A festival.
The festival. Capital T.
Okay.
The festival. But remember I mentioned 15th of the month, celebration. It's going to be winter soon. It's the last chance to get loose and celebrate.
So it's not a Chag, it's the
The
Chag.
Chag. Yeah. Yeah. Rocky Pollock says, my favorite, Sukkot Shlomecha. Okay. But you see, it's the same word. It's interesting that the other time that we mention the word Sukkah, for example, is in Sefer Yoina for Mincha of Yom Kippur. At the very end, that Yonah finds shelter under a plant, and then the worm comes and eats it out, and he gets upset. But it's a plant sheltering him, and it's used sukkah. And the rabbis say that it's also a hint that the next festival is Sukkot. That's another reason why we read Yonah on Yom Kippur, because it's already hinting to the next festival. Let's continue. So we have Torah is Chag HaAsif, Talmud is Chag, and in the Sidur, in the prayer book, the rabbis call it Zman Simchateinu, the time of our rejoicing. Okay? And the fourth is Chag HaSukkot. Okay, let's continue. It was a pilgrimage festival, which means
Everybody
everybody
went to the temple.
had to go to the temple.
But did they bring their harvest fruits with them?
The harvest fruit.
Because it's almost a harvest time.
No, the harvest fruit was Shavuot, Bikurim. But they did have to bring all the sacrifices and offerings. So back in the rabbis stipulated that what they had to do back in the day is when you go to the temple, you don't actually bring things if you don't live, unless you live close by. You basically sell it in your town, you make it into money, then you bring the money, and then if there is something to offer, you buy it again in Jerusalem, which is very good for Jerusalem's economy. And that's why when the northern and southern kingdom split, the northern kingdom lost the temple, there was nothing, and King Jeroboam decided to build his own temple and create his own religion based on temple-based Judaism.
Okay.
That some people can trace it. So some people think that religion that he created, that eventually the northern kingdom disappeared, was decimated. But what happened with all the people worshiping there, all the traditions that they developed? One theory is that many of that eventually became what we know as oral law. or rabbinic Judaism, right? That we said was given to Moshe and Sinai, Moses and Sinai. But we don't know. We can't prove that. But yet, look, all these people are observing this. Like, even washing our hands before we eat bread is not in the Torah. And there are many references of criticisms of the rabbis for doing that. But
it's a hug. It's become a hug everywhere.
who started doing that? Some people say, well, it was probably something that used to be done at the north. The temple was that temple was destroyed, and many of those traditions continue as oral law. Okay. Amparo Goldman is here. Welcome to the class, Amparo. So let's continue. Pilgrimage festival. So the pilgrimage festivals were Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot. 3. It's interesting that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur were not considered pilgrimage, but it wouldn't be weird that people, you go to the temple for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and you stay one more week for Sukkot. But they're not considered because the Torah repeats many times. The 3 pilgrimage festivals, Chag HaMatzot, Chag HaShavuot, and Chag HaSukkot, right? But it doesn't mention Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
That's in a box by itself.
But they're not mentioned in the Torah as festival of pilgrimage.
No.
Continue.
Why?
Why? I don't know. How can I know that?
But I'm always going to ask why.
You can ask. Hello, Holy Mandelkern, welcome. Let's continue. And remember, only the first 2 days are Yom Tov.
Yeah.
Only the first 2 days. And you say, what happened with the last 2 days? Well, it's a different festival. It's Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah.
Yeah.
Okay? But it's a separate festival. We recite a blessing when we enter the Sukkah,
Yeah.
because it's a mitzvah.
Yeah.
Okay? And the last day, what's the name of the last day of Sukkot? Do you guys know the last day of Sukkot? Hoshana Rabbah. Oh, you had it. You had the text.
He's Googling it.
No, it's on the text in front of there. It's called Hoshana Rabbah. No, it's called Hoshana Rabbah. Okay, the big Osana, the big salvation. Because what we do is we parade with the symbols every day, and every day is called the Hoshana. Okay, every day of Sukkot. But then eventually at the end, we do it multiple times. So it's called the Hoshana Rabbah, the big Hoshana. Okay. Good. You outsmarted me, guys. Let's continue. Let's study now the sources of Sukkot. It's a biblical festival. It's probably clear by now, right? It's not rabbinical, it's biblical. I always share if it's biblical or rabbinical. For example, if I say Hanukkah, is it biblical or rabbinical? Hanukkah is rabbinical. It's not mentioned in the Torah. Okay? And there are many others that even though they are in the Torah, it's very little what we learn there. One, Rosh Hashanah. We make a big deal of Rosh Hashanah. In the Torah, it's a paragraph. It's a blow the shofar, get together, that's it. And we make a big deal out of it. Then Yom Kippur, yes, it's a big deal in the Torah. But Rosh Hashanah is not. So Rosh Hashanah, even though it's biblical, the way we observe it is 90% rabbinical. Okay? But Sukkot, there is a lot of it in the Bible. A lot of it, the way we do it. So let's go to Leviticus first. Leviticus says, on the 15th of the 7th month, right, because it's in the Torah,
Yeah.
now we know it's Tishrei, when you harvest the land's grain, you shall celebrate a festival to God for 7 days. Okay? The first day should be a day of rest, and the eighth day should be a day of rest. You are to live in Sukkot for 7 days. Every citizen of Israel is to live in a sukkah. so that generation after generation of you will know that I made the people of Israel live in Sukkot when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am Adonai your God. Okay? Now, this is interesting because it mixes up two different concepts,
Yeah.
two different things. So it's not clear. What are we celebrating here? Are we celebrating the harvest? Or we are celebrating the fact that God took us out of Egypt and we lived in Sukkot?
Or both.
Both. Both. And
Because you can't have one without the other.
no, but try to think when this law was given for the first time.
You just came out of Egypt.
Was within the first year after Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay? Nothing happened with the harvest yet. In fact, they never saw a harvest
Of their own.
of
They
their
saw
own.
harvest in Egypt, but it
I
wasn't
don't think
their harvest.
they weren't farmers in Egypt.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It wasn't their farm.
Yeah.
The farms weren't theirs. The harvests weren't theirs. They were slaves. They were harvesting for their masters.
Yeah. So it's interesting that the Torah is mixing up both. Okay? Now, this is what happened, and this is when it started getting confusing. Because it says, when you harvest the land, okay, you're celebrating this festival to God. And then it said, you are to live in Sukkot for 7 days. Here is mentioning the sukkah that the farmers build when they harvest. Because it's not like this day that we have tractors, that you can go from one side to the other of your field and come back, and then you sleep in your house. Back in the day, if you have a big land, you have to start moving like a portable home. You do what you have to do, then you move to another section, then to another section, and then at the end of the harvest, you will most likely will come back home.
Yes.
So, what they built for the harvest, they call it sukkah because it was a shelter. That's why the confusion started being, because they said when you
And
are,
they were easily portable. You could put them up and take them
well, it's a
down.
shelter. We don't know how the shelter was, but it says basically when you are doing your harvest, you know what the farmers did, the shelter. For this festival, built one of those, a shelter. Why? Let's continue. So that generation after generation will know that I made the people of Israel live in shelters. Were the same shelters? We don't know. It just live in a shelter, so you will remember that God sheltered you.
Thank God that wasn't me.
Nobody screamed, so I guess it's fine.
No, they just dropped a piece of equipment they weren't supposed to be touching.
So-
It's upstairs from the gym.
But is it clear here that the confusion of the sukkah? So because there are two things together, that God says probably this is a good idea for you to celebrate, because basically God could have picked any day of the year to celebrate God's protection during the Exodus. It's not that they lived in a sukkah for 1 week a year. It happened for 40 years, every day. So this is a perfect time to do it, because everybody's living in a sukkah.
Is this another form of remember where you came from?
And pretty much, and also a form of getting inspired by what's going on around you. Okay?
Yep.
Any questions? No questions? Okay, so let's continue. Because there is another source. Some of the festivals in the Torah are mentioned twice or 3 times. Sometimes it's in the book of Leviticus, then it will come back in Numbers, and sometimes Moses will bring it back in Deuteronomy, when Moses is summarizing the Torah, okay, before he died. I want to read Deuteronomy. Listen to the way Deuteronomy is describing Sukkot now. This is after. You are to keep the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and wine press. Okay? Again, the harvest. Rejoice at your festival. Aha, we have something new now.
Celebrate.
Vesamachta vechagecha, says the Torah. In fact, there is a song. Vesamachta vechagecha vehaita hachsameach. It's coming from here. Okay, so we have another thing. It's not just you have to live in a sukkah. You have to rejoice on your festival. And this is very important because this is one of the reasons why the rabbi said that on festivals you can cook while on Shabbat you cannot. Because on Shabbat is day of rest. It was never described as a day of rejoicing.
No.
Because this one is described as a day of
We
rejoicing.
don't celebrate Shabbat, we observe Shabbat.
So this is a celebration, so we are allowed to use to reheat and all that stuff. Okay? Rejoice at your festival, you and your sons and your daughters, your male, female slave, the Levite, the foreigners, orphans, widows living among you. 7 days you are to keep the festival for Adonai your God in the place Adonai your God will choose. This is a reference to the temple, that you have to go to the temple. Because Adonai your God will bless you in all your crops and in all your work, so you are to be full of joy. It's another layer of why we do this. It's also almost like Thanksgiving in advance. We are thanking God for the next crop in advance. Which is interesting because here also we have Thanksgiving around the same time, right?
We do. Much earlier than in the United States, which is almost 2
But
weeks
it's the
before
same-
Christmas, it becomes a shopping event.
But it's the same time of the year.
It's it becomes a harvesting year.
It's the same.
Yep.
Because we are in the same season.
Yes, we are.
So we have these kind of things. And I always remember that Thanksgiving in Hebrew is hodu. Comes from the word lehodot. You know the word Yehudi, that means Jew. It's coming from the same root, lehodot, hodu. Right? It's Thanksgiving. But hodu is also in Hebrew the word for turkey. It's a coincidence. It's just an interesting one, an interesting connection, right? That people here, they eat hodu to celebrate hodu, but they don't do it because of that.
I'll give you another turkey. Most of the time, Torahs are scribed using a turkey feather.
Turkey feather, Torahs, okay? Okay? Very interesting. Okay, so you see between Leviticus and, Deuteronomy, not Numbers, Deuteronomy. I don't know what I said, Numbers. Deuteronomy, they're adding more layers, okay? To how we observe Sukkot. Let's continue. Okay, so let's go back to this confusion of what a sukkah is, okay? What is not confusion is for the harvest, a sukkah is like the one we have outside, a booth. It's a fact. It's a fact. Okay?
Open to the sky.
It's a shelter. Okay? But
Pretty
what
fancy,
about
actually.
the journey from Egypt to Israel? Okay? Read to this. I'm going to the Talmud now. I'm going to the Talmud. And the Talmud says, it was taught that, quoting the Torah, that I made the people of Israel live in Sukkot. Okay, thus the Talmud is going to explain that verse. Now, first came Rabbi Eliezer to explain the verse. Rabbi Eliezer said, this refers to the clouds of glory.
It's okay, I'll ignore it.
This refers to the clouds of glory. Okay, what is the clouds of glory?
God?
We'll see in a minute. It was something that was floating above them on their journey, sheltering them. Okay, so basically,
Like a holy cloud?
pretty much. So, sometimes it's called Hananei Akavod. Hananei Akavod. Hananei means clouds. Hakavod, of glory. So Rabbi Eliezer said, when you read that verse, this refers to the clouds of glory. But Rabbi Akiva said the Jews made actually booths for themselves. So Rabbi Akiva said, no. When they left Egypt, they actually made physical shelters for themselves. And both opinions coexist in the Talmud. One is that it was a miraculous thing. The other one is they made it themselves. Okay? So why would they have the two different opinions? Let's study. Let's see. Let's see first the arguments for Rabbi Eliezer to say there was the clouds of glory. Okay? He is quoting first Exodus 13:21. And he says, Exodus 13:21, God went before them by day with a pillar of cloud to guide them along the way. By night, it appeared as a pillar of fire, providing them with light. They could thus travel day and night. Okay?
Yep, makes sense.
And from there, the Midrash will say, how was the cloud? Well, it was in front, but it was also on top, and it was flattening the road, so there were not snakes or scorpions or anything. They will be safe. Oh, shelter. Maybe that's the sukkah that the Torah is talking about. That's what Rabbi Eliezer said. Okay, and also Rabbi Eliezer quotes Numbers 10:34, that it says, when they began traveling from the camp by day, God's cloud remained over them. There you go. So basically the way it was, this cloud will move. When the cloud was moving, everybody will have to pack everything and follow it. Eventually the cloud will stop, and they have to stop, and they have to set up the camp there. How long? They never knew, until the cloud will start moving again. And they have to start moving. So the cloud
Every
was,
time they moved, the cloud was there.
it was the opposite. When the cloud will move, they will have to move.
Oh, excuse me.
And they have to catch
So
up.
the cloud forced them to move.
Correct.
Kept them from being settled or staying too long in one place. Okay.
Or not. Or sometimes it forced them to stay very long in one place. Eventually there is a parsha that it will summarize all the stations that they went. I can't remember all the details.
So if the cloud stayed, they stayed. If the cloud moved, they moved.
Correct. Okay, so this is the argument for Rabbi Eliezer, to say it's the cloud of glory. Now, the Midrash will add a little bit about that, and the Midrash Sifri will say 7 clouds are recorded in the account of their travel. Okay, 4 from the 4 sides, 1 above, 1 below, 1 in front. Okay, and I said the one in front will flatten the highland, raise the hollows, and destroy snakes and scorpions. 7 clouds.
So when we shake, we do those 7 points. Yes?
7? Do we do 7? I think we do 4, 5, 6. No, we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Only 6?
Oh, some people say 7 is to the inside. To the inside, yes. The 7th is to the inside. When you,
All the cardinal points plus. Yep.
yeah. I've seen Robert Greene does that.
Yep.
It's a front,
Always.
inside,
Always.
side, inside,
Yep.
left, inside, right?
Alright.
So it's 6 plus the inside. Yeah, you can count 7. Let's continue. Now, the Rabbi Akiva explanation that it was an actual booth doesn't really need proof from the Torah, because he's using logic here, right? If you travel from one place to another, you have to build a shelter. Okay. So now there is another question that I kind of opened it at the beginning of the class. I said, why do we celebrate Sukkot now? Right? Because the shelter was a non-stop thing for 40 years. So why do we need to pick exactly the 15th of Tishrei to celebrate Sukkot? Can't we do it in the middle of the summer so it will be a little nicer? Right? Listen to this. Listen to this. I'm going to read now the commentary from the Arba Turim. He says, even though they left Egypt in the month of Nisan, okay, we are not commanded to build Sukkot during that time because it is at the beginning of the summer season when it's normal for people to make a booth for shade. Therefore, it will not be apparent that we are building the sukkah for the purpose of fulfilling the mitzvah. Okay? Therefore, we are commanded to make them in the 7th month, when it's the start of the rainy season, when it is normal for people to go back into their homes. Thus, when we leave our homes to go into the sukkah, we demonstrate that we are doing so to fulfill God's command. So, in other words, this is when everybody in the Middle East that is not Jewish, they finish their harvest, they take their shelters down, they go home. That's when we go out and build ours. Other than that, because the winter is too cold.
So we're a practical religion, right? We tend to be practical in a lot of things.
We tend to be practical,
So why do we not have a roof in a rainy season?
Why don't we have enough sense to get out of the rain? Is that what you're asking?
No. But it's don't forget that many of the things or the interpretations of how to build the roof and everything is rabbinical. Okay, the Torah doesn't give any guidance on how to build a roof. Can we put it? If you go to the Torah,
Just said put something over your head to keep the rain out.
the Torah says build a shelter. And then the rabbis started to say, well, it has to be something, it has to be cut from it has to grow from the ground, but it had to be cut out.
So unlike the description of the Mishkan, which was very, very specific.
Yes, there is nothing about the sukkah.
There is nothing about any other building.
Well, even about the 4 species, it's not a slam dunk that this is what we need to have. In fact, we'll see, it's coming up in the class. The thing,
Yeah.
how do you call it? The etrog. Where in the Torah says that we need to have etrog?
It doesn't.
The Torah says the fruit of a beautiful tree.
Could be anything. It could be a pomegranate.
I don't know what was. In fact, I was talking to farmers. I was talking this with, for example, with Patrick Eleazar. They said this was not available
No, it wasn't.
in the Middle East at the time of the Exodus.
That's right. And who would want to eat it anyway? It's so bitter.
It was introduced from other parts of Asia centuries after.
Now there's this whole thing about Asia.
Mostly from China and India.
Yes.
These things. So why the rabbis decided that this is the thing, I don't know. It's very unusual. It's not like a how you call it, like a native fruit
No, it's
to
not
Israel.
that. No.
Anyway, good luck trying to change it now, right? But it became like that. So this is why, according to the rabbis, we celebrate Sukkot now and not when it's nicer outside. Hey, if you live in Winnipeg, we even had Sukkot with snow.
Yes, we have.
I remember the roof collapsing because of the weight of the snow. And today I got a WhatsApp from somebody asking me if it's okay to tie the roof to the sukkah. And I said, look, I tied mine, otherwise it will fly in 5 seconds. There is no way. So, anyway, let's continue. Now, let's see what the Vilna Gaon said about Sukkot. Now we'll talk about symbolisms. Okay, what it symbolizes, Sukkot. It says, Sukkot is a remembrance of the Jewish people being encompassed by the clouds of glory that were themselves dependent upon the building of the Mishkan. Okay, this fact explains why we commemorate Sukkot in Tishrei rather than Nisan, with the clouds of glory first appeared. Let me expand this a little bit. Oh, we have comments here. Holy Mandelker says, so it becomes very clear that it's intentional for spiritual purposes to build a sukkah. It's not a matter of practicality. Yes, that's correct. So there is something that we're supposed to experience in the sukkah that you will experience in this time of the year and not in the middle of the summer. So, for example, as you said, Jerome, getting the rain once in a while was intended that way. Feeling uncomfortable inside the sukkah, that was part of the intention.
Yes. For
Okay?
Sure, for sure.
So let's go back to the...
That's why you sit on the ground or have cushions or pillows and then kinds of other things, but not tables and chairs.
Okay.
Or theoretically not supposed to have tables
So,
and chairs.
but now we are trying again to try to understand why now and not when the clouds of glory first appear.
Okay.
Now, really, however, it seems that when the Jews made the golden calf in Tammuz, according to the rabbis, that was in Tammuz, the clouds of glory disappeared. It's punishment. So God was saying, look,
Time of year.
my presence was always with you through the clouds. So basically God said, I sent you the clouds so you will always remember that I'm with you. How else those clouds will miraculously follow you, okay? And then you go and do the golden calf because you think that Moses didn't come back. Didn't you see the clouds all this time?
He's still there.
Yeah. So basically, part of the punishment, according to the rabbis, was the clouds disappeared.
Makes sense.
Listen to this. Only to return when the Jews began to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Moses descended from Mount Sinai with the second tablets on Yom Kippur.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Actually, that's one of the things on Yom Kippur, is the anniversary of the giving of the second set of the tablets. When Moses returned, and it says that all the Jewish people, to avoid temptations to rebel, they fasted to remain strong and to wait for Moses. Okay? So that was the first Yom Kippur.
Seconds are very important.
So the second tablet, Yom Kippur. The following day, the seventh day of Tishrei, Moses gathered the nation and commanded them to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle.
Yep.
Then, as the Torah writes, the next 2 days, the 12th and the 13th of Tishrei, the Jews contributed materials and precious metals to build the Mishkan. On the 14th of Tishrei, the sages, who were designated to construct the Mishkan and its vessels, took the gold from Moses. And on the 15th of Tishrei, the Jews began to build the Mishkan, and the clouds of glory returned.
Okay.
This is why we celebrate Sukkot on the 15th of Tishrei. Because there is, according to the rabbis, when the construction of the tabernacle began. It took longer than that to be finished, but that was the beginning. And the clouds returned. Okay?
Okay.
It's I like this also because the Vilna Gaon doesn't talk at all about anything related to the harvest. Have you noticed that? And this is very common with certain rabbis, even, for example, when they talk about Tu B'Shvat, that is the new year for the trees, and many people talk about the connection with Israel. Many of these rabbis, and you will call them in these days, I get Haredis,
Yes.
right?
Right.
They didn't make any connections with the land. All the connections have to be with Torah or God. I find it interesting because if you start talking about the harvest too much,
There were temporal issues and spiritual
Yes,
issues.
so this
and
is
and there's
this
an
is a-
invisible line, but
this
very
is a
firm one.
absolutely this is a completely spiritual approach of Sukkot, no connection with the land whatsoever. Okay? I find it interesting. Let's continue. Now, let's talk about the four species. It's from Leviticus chapter 23, verse 40. Let's see what the four species are. It says, on the first day, okay, first day of Sukkot, you are to take the fruit of the hadar tree. Hadar, you know, remember when I said Hidur mitzvah before?
Yeah.
Same root. Hadar tree, beautiful tree.
Yeah.
Which one it is? We don't know. The rabbis decided that is the trog. Don't shoot the messenger. That's the way it is, and we have to pay a fortune to get it.
Indeed.
Now, can we actually plant an etrog tree in your country? I take it from there instead of bringing it from Israel?
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
So there's that whole argument about trees from the Orient, and people who are of Asian extraction only buy etrog.
Because they probably think it's a different one, different species.
Well, they think it's a different species, but the Israeli rabbis tell them it's not kosher, it's not acceptable.
Oh, but I think they
There's a whole big, I sent it to you today.
is it from what is it, the most famous one outside Israel? Is it is Egypt? Maybe I can't remember. There are other ones that they don't have the piton. They don't have this little thing.
Oh, I don't remember.
But they are not from Israel. They are from
No,
other
they're not.
country in the
They're
Middle East.
somewhere else.
So, yeah. So technically, you could get this, get the seeds, plant it here, and if you grow it, you can
I'm
use it.
surprised they are planting them in California. They're planting everything else
Well,
in California.
Now that you mentioned that, I used to have a congregant in my former shul in Chile that he had a vineyard. Very famous vineyard. It's a,
States, actually.
you know, maybe you saw here the Alfasi wines.
Yeah.
He was one of the owners of that. Okay, so what he decided to do is to plant the etrog on a section of his vineyard. You know what happened?
The grapes were spoiled.
They were the size of a basketball. Because the nutrients are different. I don't know what it is, the way they. So
Different soil, different climate, different.
it was impossible. He brought it to shul.
Very bad.
He brought it to shul. It was impossible to shake it. They were, and then because we couldn't use it,
Hold it with one hand.
the guy said, "Well, at least let's eat it." And he opened it.
Full of seeds.
It was this much peel, this little pulp fruit inside.
Come
So,
across it with a 7.
He forgot the idea, and they even today they still bring it from Israel. They couldn't make it grow at the decent size. Yeah. Hi Randy, welcome. You're watching the reply, okay? Yeah, it's going to be at 8 p.m. Central Time. Amparo Goldman says something very interesting here, guys. We plant in my temple in San Diego, California, and Oh, Amparo, you didn't finish your phrase. I'm curious now. I bet that it's usable. If they can find the right kind of nutrients and the right soil, that you can plant it and use it. You just have to be sure that it's coming from a kosher place, the seed, because there are different species that they may not be acceptable. Okay, so number one, on the first day you are to take the fruit of the adar tree, the trog, the palm fronds, the lulav, which is this, the long one, okay? And the photo on the screen is the one in the middle. And then you have the thick branches. What is thick branches? Well, the rabbis decided that it's the myrtle. You can see it here. The hadas.
And it smells good too.
The hadas. And then it says, and the river willows, the arava. That is this here. That is also easy to know. But the hadas and the etrog, rabbinic, it was voted. It was voted.
It was decreed.
It was decreed what it is, and then that's what we do. Oh, I said, okay. So Amparo says we plant we plant them in my temple in San Diego, California, and it's growing. So Amparo, if you ever have a photo of one of those, I'm very curious. And is your shul using it? I would like to know. And is it reform? Is it conservative? This is a
It's exciting.
this is a bunch of Jews making history. You know,
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Okay, so it says you take the fourth thing and celebrate in presence of Adonai your God for 7 days. So it's clear that you have to bring this to the temple/synagogue for 7 days. So every day of Sukkot.
We do.
Now the rabbis adjusted that and they said you don't do it on Shabbat. Because on Shabbat there is no carrying. So unless the Torah specifically says that there is a mitzvah that it has to be fulfilled on Shabbat, right? Then it's not. You're not allowed to break the Shabbat. For example, on Shabbat, the priest have to light a fire for the temple, which is forbidden on Shabbat to light a fire. But because the Torah specifically said that they have to do it,
That's the priest's job, one of his jobs.
but it's a specific biblical allowance to do it. If you don't have that, then you cannot break Shabbat. So that's what happened with the lulav. That's what happened with the shofar and the Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
So, Amparo is a conservative synagogue, California. Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, so even all this set that I have here, even this comes from Israel. Okay? But now you could make it here.
Okay.
You could. It's just out of convenience. And there is a specific way we
Except
do
the
it.
fact that we don't have palms here, the rest of the stuff you could just pick up along the riverbank.
Well, I get, San Diego, California, probably they don't have any
Oh, they
problems
have
with that.
lots of them in
Yeah.
San Diego.
We have willows, though.
We do, we have other ones thing.
We have willows.
We have everything but the palm frond.
So basically, because you need to have three myrtle branches, okay,
Yep.
2 willow branches, and 1 lulav and 1 etrog.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm going to mention one more thing because we are running out of time. There are different symbolisms of this. You probably all heard the spiel about it, what it represents. But I'm going to go this way. Which is interesting is one of the reasons why we come to synagogue and we shake it every day. It's supposed to be part of a ritual for rain.
Coming soon to a
How do-
neighborhood view this afternoon.
How do we know that? Because at the very end of Sukkot, on Shmini Atzeret, what do? Tfilat Geshem.
Yes.
We add to the service at the end the
Okay.
prayer for
Okay.
rain.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting question.
Which we continue.
No, but if this is a ritual for rain, why do we leave the prayers for rain to the end and we don't say it at the beginning?
Well, we don't want it to interfere with this.
We don't want to rain on Sukkot.
That's right.
That's why. Otherwise, the rabbis say, and this is what Jerome, you said practicality, right? The rabbis, listen to this logic. Who is going to pray with kavanah, with intention for rain, if you know that you have to spend a week in Sukkot?
And be cold and miserable.
So
Your prayers will not be happy prayers.
out of practicality, the rabbi said, shake the lulav because it's in the Torah, but the prayers for rain, you should recite them at the very end after there is no more obligation to live in the sukkah anymore.
Right.
So it was delayed a week out of rabbinical decree, because otherwise nobody will pray with kavanah. So the rabbi decided that rather we should go and pray with kavanah for rain, and know that I don't want rain because I have to be in the sukkah. So
Those guys were pretty savvy.
that's the thing. Okay. So everyone, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
joining
Rabbi.
it.
Good class.
Thank you. Welcome, Ashira. It's been how long that you?
It's been a while since I've been here in person.
That's for
During
sure.
COVID, I joined a few times virtually, but
Yeah, remember the times when we used to have it on Saturday after services.
Well, that made for a terribly long day.
But is it a good idea to bring it back on Saturdays?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. So,
Makes for a really, really long day. Midweek is better.
but remember, we used to have scotch and everything.
We did, but there's no reason why
You
we
can still do
can't
the
have scotch
scotch.
in the middle of
No.
the
Not
Learn
here.
on another day.
You can't do it
They
here.
might not want us to
Not
do it
here,
here, but we
Not
can do
here.
it elsewhere.
Anybody know
Not
what
here.
Mahjong classes are?
Maybe
Probably
sign.
in the adult lounge, which is in
Maybe
that
sign
general
on.
neighborhood and hang a left.
Yes.
Hang a left?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's about as much as I know about mange.
Thank you, everyone. It's very Rocky Paula is very difficult to follow with constant interruptions. Okay, I should bring back my microphone next time. I do have I have like an open mic here, but I remember when I started the classes, I have on top of that the microphone just for myself. Maybe I should bring that next time. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Chag Sameach in advance. Right, Sukkot starts on Friday night. There is also Shabbat, which makes it a little bit interesting. Okay, so we have Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday that is shorter, a couple of prayers that we take away.
Because,
We start from after Lechadodi, basically,
okay,
because it's combined with Sukkot. And then on Saturday morning is Shabbat, Sukkot, and Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And we are going to have a special service here at the Shaare Zedek. So if you can make it,
where are we?
everybody's, where are we? In the theater.
We're here.
Okay, so let me repeat where are we for the weekend. Friday night here.
Okay,
Saturday morning
there.
here.
Oh, Saturday morning.
Here.
Remind everyone online what here is.
Here at the Asper campus. Saturday afternoon, okay, which is Mincha of Sukkot
Yes,
and Mincha of Shabbat, and then the Erev, second day of Sukkot,
yeah.
is at Temple Shalom, and Sunday morning, second day of Sukkot, at 9 a.m., Temple Shalom. Okay?
And then from our
Yeah. So, good question. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. So again, Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach, stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Remember, it's going to be restreamed tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time.